I'm going to spend some time today talking about Chapter 3, about the assignment and about the chapter. First, about the assignment. This is going to take you probably more than 300 words. This is pretty complex, and I'm going to expect a pretty good analysis and summary and also application of what you're going to do in the future. As a future teacher, here's the prompt. As a future teacher, prepare a one-page handout summarizing the direct instruction model in the context of a content area, math, science, social studies, etc., and grade level you would like to teach. The content area and the grade level. Basically a one-page handout of what you would do, and that's probably a one page would be probably more than the 300 words here. Don't worry about if it's a full page or not a full page. Just think of being complete here. The different aspects of the direct instruction model and how that would apply to your special topic of interest, like your content area and the grade level that you expect to teach. Some of you want to teach the very young, some want the middle ages, and some the upper grades. So that's the assignment. Now about the chapter. Direct instruction is the kind of instruction that I have used in my teaching 5th grade in Escondido, California, and in teaching my classes here at TAMU most of the time. Not the entire time, because different subjects are different. And so you'll find that direct instruction, the direct instruction model, is probably the dominant one in the United States right now, is the traditional model, the most traditional, probably. Now, you might not be aware of that because maybe your teachers weren't teaching the direct instruction model. Now, if your teachers were all about lecture and you took notes and somewhere along the way you had an exam, that is not direct instruction. And so, but some of you think that is direct instruction and that is the dominant model. That might be the way some of your high school teachers taught. It might be the way some of your college teachers taught, but it's not direct instruction, and it's really not a good model for instruction. It's time for you to forget about that and stop leaving all the burden on the students to be able to learn on their own, because you just standing up there and talking to them isn't going to make them learn. You're going to find eventually that for this course, it's not my videos and my talking that make you learn. It is the work you do. It's answering the prompts, trying to do a good job on the prompts, and me being strict and expecting high quality from you on the prompts. And the prompts, you're figuring out pretty soon here that you're doing like something every day. Sometimes, usually you're doing two things. You're doing a post and a response to peers most days. So 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, you're getting graded on something. I'm giving you a lot of feedback, and you're learning from the feedback, and you improve for the next time. So that's basically what we're doing here, but let's go through the different stages or the different steps of the direct instructional model. Before the steps, you'll read in the textbook that there are a lot of cognitive, psychological, and social reasons for using the direct instruction model. It is the one that seems to work especially well for those populations of students where you have low ability students or low schooling experience students and those with high experience. It seems to accommodate a wider range of the abilities of students than some of the other models we're going to talk about later in this semester. So the direct instruction model seems to be the most flexible in many ways. In fact, it is one of the ones that where the teacher works very hard during the direct instruction model. The steps in the direct instruction model. Step 1, preview previously learned material. When I teach my undergraduate students, I'll call that the anticipatory set or the introduction or something like that, where you try to connect the lesson you're going to do this time with material they've had in the past. Maybe some personal experience, maybe what they would have had. If I'm teaching fourth grade, I'd say, remember when your fourth grade teacher taught this? And then I will ask some of the students to tell me what they remember from that, from their fourth grade. And then I will, after we spend maybe 2-3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes maximum doing that, then I'll move and I'll tell them what we're going to learn for the day. This is what we're going to learn, this is the objective, and this is why it's good that you know this. You use this in real life. You're going to need this for the next grade level when you study this, something similar to this at a higher level, at a more complex level. Step 3 is the presentation of new material. Now, if all you're going to do is lecture and your students are just sitting there taking notes the whole time, that's not the way to present new material. You're not holding a book in your hand and writing things on the board so that students know what to copy in their notes. You have to do much more than that. You need to engage your students. So the presentation of new material, you might use technology, you might use videos, you might use demonstrations. I love demonstrations, especially for science. And you might be posing questions to your students and making it very interactive. So it's not just you talking, but you're engaging your students and they're participating in the presentation of the new material. You're making frequent stops to check for understanding, to ask them questions, to have them comment on something you just said or something they just saw. So the presentation of new material in a very professional and a very knowledgeable way. And a lot of the things you're going to be doing your first year teaching is trying to figure out the curriculum, because maybe you're going to be teaching things that you never really learned yourself, or maybe these are not your strengths. Maybe you weren't very good at math, but you've been assigned to teach math. Well, you're going to have to get good at math really quick. And so you're going to have to be way ahead of your students. Try to be as far ahead of your students as possible. It was kind of embarrassing when I would go and I would watch some elementary school teachers do their student teaching in maybe a third grade class, and they're teaching something on science, and there's always 1 or 2 kids in the third graders who seem to know more about the topic than the student teacher did. And that's kind of embarrassing. So you're going to have to really master the material that you're going to teach, whatever grade level that happens to be. Step 4, guide practice. Assess performance and provide corrective feedback. Okay, you're presenting new material. And the new material, that's the knowledge and the understanding levels of the objectives. That's part of it. But then there's the do. And how are they going to show that they understand? How are they going to show that they know? And how are they going to demonstrate that they do? That's where the guided practice comes in. And the guided practice, or the guide practice, assess performance and provide corrective feedback, is where if I were teaching my 5th graders, that would be the time when I'm teaching math. I would put a problem on the board and I would ask somebody, well, what do I do next? And ask somebody else, what do I do next? Someone else, what do I do next? And then I would say, okay, in groups of 3, solve this other problem I put on the board. And I would walk around and see that the groups of 3 were able to do it. And I would be guiding the practice, and what I would be doing is I would be previewing the assignment they're going to have. And we would do maybe the first 3 or 4 problems in math that they were going to have maybe another 16 more they were going to do either in class or for homework. But I would make sure that the class, maybe in groups, maybe individually, I would walk around and make sure that they were getting it correct. When I would teach reading, I would stop once in a while and I'd ask someone to tell, where are we? What's the next word? What does that mean? And in that way. And so very much guidance, very interactive between teacher and students. And you're working with your lower achieving students, higher achieving students, middle students, everybody. You're guiding the practice. Then what you would do And they might be in groups. They might be groups, they might be individual. Then it says assign independent practice and assess performance and provide corrective feedback. Again, step 5. Now, when I would independent doesn't mean individual. You can be independent practice in groups even, especially at the higher grades and maybe at the lower grades as well. What it means is that the teacher is not as involved. The teacher's not looking over their shoulder so much to see what they're writing down. This can be individual or this can be in a small group. But the teacher, instead of walking around and looking for errors and looking for needed encouragement, like in the guided practice, in the independent practice, the teacher is more leaving the students on their own, still around, still watching, but waiting for the students to ask for help. And then when they ask for help, then you're going to go ahead and help them and give that corrective feedback. So they're more on their own. And then there's step 6. Step 6 is review periodically, offering corrective feedback if necessary. Just because you taught this on Monday doesn't mean you don't come back to it on Wednesday. You always try to integrate something they had earlier, especially if there were some students who struggled. You keep working with them and you make sure that they don't forget something because you've moved on to something else. You might give homework depending on the grade level and the policy of the school. Some schools don't allow homework, others encourage homework. But what you do is that once you get feedback from the homework, then you know which students are struggling. And you can always go back and reteach something that you had before. So I've looked at your homework assignments, and here's what I'm seeing. And you're going to see a little bit of that probably next week and in some emails from me as I get some of your, like your first assignment. You can count on it. After your first assignment, I will reassure those who didn't do so well, saying, well, several of you have struggled with this aspect or this aspect or this aspect. This is how, then I'll tell you, this is how you handle it. This is what you do. And don't forget to send me a draft of your work so that I can look at it if you're having trouble with it. And so part of what you're doing here is encouraging students to have contact with the teacher to get more feedback and to maybe get more help. I've had situations even where I've had students who were just not responding to the schoolwork, but during vacation time, I had them work with their parents or with an older brother and sister, because sometimes the parents didn't speak any English, and they can't really help much with reading English, but the junior high school brother and sister could help the 5th grade student with their reading, and they did that. And I might mention something like that again later on. So the direct instruction model is the most common one. Read this chapter. There's a lot of good ideas in here, a lot of good practices. And then when you do this assignment, you envision yourself going through these steps. Look at the lesson plan models that they have in the textbook. Those are very good. And I'm hoping that just this brief little introduction here will help you. If you have any questions, please let me know.